Hello, and welcome to the Women's Football Review. I'm Maria, and joining me tonight is CM. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I just want to say something very important. I'm usually drinking a cup of tea or I've got a bottle of water. Tonight, I have got this Mirinda, which I'm told is like a chicken shop drink. So, cheers, everyone. Pretty awesome. We like to talk a bit about food and drink on the show, CM, as you know. So
100%.
Yeah, we've done the food bit. So tonight we've got loads to talk about. We're going to go through all the women's results from the past week. It is the final week now of the women's league, of the women's season. So loads going on, some pretty exciting matches coming up. So they've got their weekend. In fact, this is the last weekend. So last weekend of women's football season. So some exciting things going on there. And then we're going to chat a little bit about just some general goings on in the world of women's football and answering all of the questions and comments, comments that hopefully you all join in with. So do join in, do hit the like button, do subscribe, do comment. We love it. We love it when people are on here commenting and joining in. It makes it a much more enjoyable show. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of the results. CM, feel free to comment or whatever you want on all of these. And I'm gonna always try and do them in that style. You know, on Saturday when you get on TV where it's like, Liverpool won.
The professional.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm only joking. Anyway, so let's go. Women's Super League. So we had Brighton and Hove Albion. I know we're not allowed to mention Brighton on this channel, but Brighton lost, you'll be pleased to know. So they lost to Birmingham City 3-1. So that's quite a big loss, actually. That was a game on Saturday. Then we had Everton v Arsenal. Everton 0, Arsenal 3. Arsenal doing really, really well in the Women's Super League. However, it doesn't look like they're going to catch up with Chelsea, actually, now. But anyways, that's that one. Then we had Aston Villa 0, Man United 0. Tottenham 1, Chelsea 3. Chelsea are like the stars of the Super League at the moment. We had Reading 1, West Ham 2, Man City 4, and Leicester 0. And then we had one more game on Thursday, actually. So that was Chelsea v Tottenham, and that was a 2-1. So in terms of the table itself, we've got Chelsea at the top with 50 points and Arsenal in second place with 46. So Arsenal, they're not going to catch up now. It was looking like they were going to actually make it. I swore. No, I didn't. I said, I've just realised what you're talking about. I said Brighton. It's a place. I wasn't referring to, it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's a forbidden word on this channel.
Yeah, but some people don't know that. Some people don't know the Brighton Crystal Palace rivalry. And, do we still feel the same about the women's team? I guess we do. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop saying Brighton because we don't need to mention them again. So we're done with Brighton, or the Seaweeds, as you like to call them. It's just because I'm so nice. I can't insult another team. I feel it makes me feel a bit sad. Of course. So Arsenal, unfortunately, they're not going to catch up to Chelsea. That's not unfortunate, really. I do apologise to any Arsenal fans out there, but they're not going to catch up now, which is a shame because they nearly got there. And then we've got Man United in third with 39 points. So it's quite third place wasn't going to be catching up. It was a bit of a race for Chelsea and Arsenal, and Chelsea got there in the end. It's up in the summer. Where do you guys think she'll end up? Such a clinical finisher. Yes, she is. She's actually one of the best players in the Super League. I don't know, actually. I've got to be honest. I didn't realise that was the case. I don't know. Where do you think she should end up? What do you think she should be going for at this stage? So she's a prolific player. So I don't know.
If I'm looking for a winning situation, I don't know, Arsenal, if they seem like they're gonna fall short this season. So maybe, I don't know if she's thinking about re up there, or maybe trying to go to another side where she can go and contend for bigger things. Yeah.
Is she going to stay? Is she going to? There's not been any news out actually, so that would imply that she'll be moving on. But I guess you kind of want to stay in the top teams, don't you? But
exactly.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. It'd be interesting to keep an eye on that one. Maybe next week we'll have a bit more news around that, and we'll be able to find out a little bit more. Sorry, I'm kind of swinging around everywhere because I've got all my notes for the scores. So I guess the Super League's pretty much tied up. We've got the winner, second place. It's not going to change. So championship. Now this is interesting. Now the championship's already been won by Liverpool. So the Liverpool women, they stormed ahead, absolutely amazing, completely deserve their place in the Super League for next season. I'll quickly go through the results and then we'll talk about this race for second place, because there's a real race. It's so worth watching the women's games this weekend if people can. So obviously you're gonna have to kind of take your pick because it is the last day of the season. But this is what happened last week. So we had Blackburn 0 and Charlton 3, Durham 3, Sunderland 0, Liverpool 6 against Sheffield United 1. Now it's quite interesting because Crystal Palace are playing Sheffield in their final game this week, so that could be a little clue there if Sheffield kind of follow that pattern. Coventry 1, Leeds Lewis. I never know how to say it. Is it Lewis or lose? Does anyone know?
Probably
Do you
Lewis.
know?
I have no idea.
It's spelled Lewes.
Yeah, I would go for lose. I don't know.
Lose. I heard people calling it Lewis last week, but I don't know. Anyway, if you're from that place or you know how to say it, stick it in the comments so that we know how to say it for next time. Crystal Palace 2, Watford 1. I was gutted to miss that match. I really wanted to get down and watch that, but unfortunately I was unable to watch it. Bristol City 1. Hello, we are well. Thank you for joining. Bristol City 1, London City Lionesses 3. And then all the last fixtures are being played this Sunday. Now, it's really, really exciting because we have got a race for second place at the moment. So Palace, so I'm being completely biased because, as you all know, I have what's the word now? A deep affinity to Crystal Palace. And you probably all know that I do have another team, but Crystal Palace are my, they're where I go. They're what I watch and can follow regularly, actually, in person. So if Palace win on Sunday against Sheffield United, and the Lionesses and Bristol lose, so there's a lot of ifs here, right? So if they lose or draw, Palace could actually get second place, but that does who is it that needs to lose? Basically, I think the Lionesses need to lose for Palace to come up to second, because at the moment on goal they come fourth on goal difference if it stays as it is. So Palace could finish second or third, and it's all dependent on this final match. It's a really, really exciting end, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who actually gets there. And that's brilliant. I love these kind of exciting endings. Now, unfortunately, in women's football, you only get one team being promoted and one getting relegated from each league. So it's kind of frustrating that Crystal Palace they're basically, whatever happens now, they're going to finish the highest they've ever placed in their league. So it's kind of frustrating that they're not going to really get rewarded for it by even getting to go into a playoff or whatever. So there's basically just one team goes up, one team goes down. And then below the championship, we've got two more leagues. We've got the National League, but they're split into two. So you have National League, South, National League. Is it called National League? Anyway, they've got South and North. And then what happens is the winner of that team, of each league, then has a playoff, and the one of those then goes up into the championship. So yeah, I agree, Rich. I think a playoff system would be awesome, but unfortunately, it's how it is at the moment, and it's a shame because I'd love to see the second and the third teams getting rewarded in some, in that way as well. What's your take on it, CM?
I think, and I was gonna kind of ask the question: do
Yeah.
you think kind of getting those second, third, and fourth teams more involved would add a bit more excitement or maybe attraction to the competitions itself?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
especially in the situation at the championship, that title race is already finalized. So
Exactly.
you kind of want to see that, oh, it's going down to the wire. You don't know
Yeah,
what's going to happen really until the final games or weeks of the league. So it kind of adds
exactly.
that bit of excitement, kind of what we're seeing with Liverpool and Manchester City in the Premier League. Just adds a
Exactly.
bit more drama to it.
Yeah, it gives a little bit, it gives something else. It gives them something else to fight for. Because at the moment, obviously, as I said, for Crystal Palace, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know a great deal about the other teams, how they've placed in the past, but for Crystal Palace to have their highest ever placing in the league, and again, as I said, not be rewarded for it, it's almost like, well, win or lose, obviously there's pride there, and you want to be, um, you want to be on, you want to be placing high, but it just means that the excitement is just who's going to finish second, but nothing actually happens to that person who places second. And you have to then hope that next season they carry on in their form so that they can hopefully finish first. So it's, yeah, the race is now finished for them. And actually, it was finished quite a few weeks ago now. But I think for the teams, there's still that excitement there because it's a pride thing, and as I said, they've never finished that high before for Crystal Palace anyway. So I guess it's exciting. It's exciting for them. Other National League games broadcast. Do you know? I know the Super League is, and the Championship, but I don't think the National League is actually. Unless they're on the FA. You can get the FA channel. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, the
They're
FA player
definitely all on
online.
there. Yeah, I think they're all on there, but I'm not sure if they're all necessarily live. But definitely the Championship and the WSL are. Liverpool kind of ran away with the Championship, so other teams can be, what does that say, deflated. Yeah, I think that's what CM was kind of getting at, weren't you?
Yeah, and kind of bouncing off of that, I would say, what logical changes would you kind of implement? Because I know sometimes it's tough to implement a lot of changes
Yeah.
in one season and stuff like that. So it would kind of have to be stretched out across a few seasons. So what kind of changes? You kind of mentioned the playoff system, how you can implement it there. Obviously, there are 12 teams in the Super League and the Championship. So
Yeah.
you would kind of have to find a way to implement that so it makes sense and there's not too much changing or going on so the players
Yeah.
aren't disrupted in the teams.
I'd actually like to see 2 being promoted and 2 relegated. It's a very small league. 12 teams, and actually I think there's 11 in one of the lower leagues. It's a small league, so I can kind of see why perhaps it's only one that goes up and one that comes down. But it's almost like once it's won, there's no other chance. So I think definitely a playoff system for second place or whatever for the next team to get promoted would be pretty cool. And it adds another little, as I think what Rich was saying, it gets rid of that deflated feeling. Oh, well, Liverpool have run away with it now. So what's the point? Nothing's going to happen. We're just going to start again next season and we're back to square one.
Yeah,
So
and
maybe playoff system, 2 automatically getting promoted, 2 automatically getting relegated. It might add a little bit more excitement and competition in those leagues because you are gonna, if you've got teams that are running away with it, yeah, maybe it makes you think, well, there's nothing else to. What's the point? Or what's the point for putting our all into it? You can kind of take your foot off the pedal a little bit and kind of sit back and just do what you can. But yeah. Top tier have been calling for more televised games. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know why they're not. Sky occasionally has them, but ultimately it's down to money. The more viewers, the more see the ads, the more are going to tune in. It's down to money. And I think that's why it'll be exactly. I think that's why we need certain changes to to happen to bring up the women's game, because we're stuck in a bit of a situation. If they don't show them, there's no point in them saying, well, it's not popular, no one's watching it. Well, you don't show it, so how can it be popular? People don't know it exists or don't know it's happening.
But
so you're in this like stuck situation.
That's definitely a thing. If you're gonna invest in it and show that you have, you know, interest in that topic, or in the women's leagues, whether it be the Champions League, the WSL, the Championship and stuff like that, you have to invest in it all in. And you know, we know the politics that goes into these things in the end of the day. And the differences and the perceptions of, because we can even speak about the common fan and their perceptions, especially in this country, on certain things. But Sky Sports have to do a better job over the next few years of really going all in and promoting the game, because at this moment of time, they're not really doing enough in terms of promotion. You know, adverts every now and then, they're not good enough if you want to, you know, reach the masses, the audiences out there, because there are millions of people watching Sky Sports, impressionable young people, older people, all kinds of people. And you have to do a better job of getting the word out there and sending a message to say, this is as good a competition as you watching the Premier League and stuff like that. Because I honestly feel like there are, and I don't want to say it like in a certain way, but people kind of say casuals, but there are a lot of people in that bracket who just like casually watching sports. So they'll gain an opinion off of what they see on Twitter and negative things, and everybody tends to take up negative things a lot more than the positive. It's just the way life is for some reason. So if you try and paint something in a positive way, and you do it a certain amount of times that almost makes it stick in your head, then you have no choice but to check it out and gain a perception of your own.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, there are people who are casually watching sport, or they've got it on. And even if you've just got it on in the background, you're still taking it in, and you'll still remember names, you'll still remember what's going on. And there's people who are obsessed with football, might not necessarily have a specific team that they follow. And actually, if the women's games were televised on more mainstream channels, like you don't have to go and look for them online, then I think you'd have a lot of people who actually want to actively watch football. They don't care who's playing, they just want to watch, who would happily tune in and watch it. But it's just not there. So you can't even casually watch. It's just not there. You're not going to be flicking through and it's there to watch. Because actually you might be flicking through and you just stop and go, oh, it's a football game on, I might as well watch it. And then you see the names as well. You'll be like, oh, Liverpool women is playing whoever, Man United. I want to watch that. And that's what we need. So we need people to just associate women's football with the fact that it's just football. It doesn't matter that it's women's, it's football. Exactly. It's a football game, and it's fun, and it's got all of those elements of football that we all love. And that's why we should be promoting it more. And there's so much that could, you know, they don't have enough sponsors. They don't have this, they don't have that. But I think if it was promoted more, then those things will come. That's the only way it can happen. It's not going to just be like, you know, they can't just expect suddenly these big, massive sponsors to go, oh, yeah, we want to sponsor this and we want to sponsor that. But some of that is also down to the men's teams. And I say the main teams because it is the main team, because they're the ones with the great facilities and the money and so on. So, you know, I think it'd be amazing if teams like, I don't know, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of what they'll do, but Liverpool and the Chelseas and whatever, when they're negotiating with their sponsors, bring in the women's team into it as well. It's even more exposure. So, you know, you want whatever on the shirt. Well, we want that on the women's shirt, because for a lot of the teams, the women have a different sponsor to the men. So I think it'd be incredible if that could, you know, if there was more emphasis from the main teams, and we've said it before, on their women's team as well. And that's part of it. And I think someone commented, you know, we should be having games in the main stadiums. Again, it's a discussion we've had many times, but you know, even if it's just 2 games a season at the moment, it'd be incredible. And hopefully I think the Euros and the women's World Cup will really bring women's football to the forefront, because it's at perfect time as well. There'll be no other football necessarily to be watching. So those football fans, we all talk about it every year. Oh, I miss football. There's no football. I miss football. Well, this year you can watch women's football and get into that.
Exactly. Exactly.
So hopefully that will, I think, I'm really hoping that the Euros really create some kind of change. And I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I'd say to you, what do you think should happen? What do you think should happen next season? I really think that there's going to be a big change in attitude after the Euros. But we don't want it to just be the excitement of the national team and we're done. What do you think needs to happen to keep that momentum going? Because we are seeing it being advertised at Wembley, at the men's FA Cup semis the week before last. They were advertising the women's FA Cup final. So what do you think needs to happen to kind of move this on and keep that momentum going?
I think it's all about, again, just having conviction and showing that you mean what you preach in a way, because, you know, whether it's down to the governing bodies or the TV people like Sky and everybody showing these competitions, you have to show that you have the interest in this subject. You have to invest in it and make sure that, or even that you're sending messages to the governing bodies to make sure that they're doing more and just keeping the pressure on them. Because I've seen a lot of, you know, under the radar competitions. For example, a big one was AFCON at the start of the year. Under the radar, but a brilliant competition. And Sky invested in it, took it away from Eurosport. BBC had it later on. But what you saw is they didn't invest in it enough to have even pundits or pre-game build-ups, you know, post-match conversations. So you have to show that you care about what you're investing in. And I feel like that is the most important thing that we're speaking about in terms of advertisement. You know, the main football clubs, we call them, just kind of involving those teams, the women's teams, and really making them feel as one, because it shouldn't be Manchester United men, Manchester United women. It should be Manchester United as a whole. I was very impressed with the way the Manchester United women's team, when they was playing Everton at Old Trafford, how they were all on the billboard and they were proud of it. So you can see the reaction and what it means to them. So it just needs to be reciprocated on the other sides now, where you have those investors like Sky, like the governing bodies and all of those people that have the power to do what they need to do in order to push the women's game further. They just need to do it now.
Definitely. And actually something interesting that happened this week was that the government announced that they're launching a, what's the word? They're doing like an inquiry into women's football to see, because again, they're looking at the fact that the Euros are obviously happening and they want to see what can happen to really build the women's game and draw the attention into the women's game on the back of this big event, because all eyes will be on England during this tournament. So it makes sense that we show that we're taking it seriously. And I think an interesting point that you made was about AFCON. You know, there was negativity before AFCON because a lot of people were going, oh, you know, our players aren't going to be at the beginning of the year. We're not going to have, I don't know, we're not going to have Salah playing. He's going to be at AFCON. Mane's not playing. He's going to be at AFCON. So-and-so's not playing. And it was almost like we felt this negativity towards it because it was taking players away from the league during that time. And although it was televised, and actually it was quite, I did have to say, I watched the final and it felt like a really big thing. But I felt that a lot of the time, it was almost like any sort of background information and what was going on was all through social media rather than, you know, the long-winded shows that we see about, say, the FA Cup final or the World Cup final or whatever. But also, I felt a little bit like it was mocked. So there was a huge focus on the mistakes that were happening and on the, you know, oh, they finished the game 5 minutes early and then they had to start again and whatever. So it was almost like this comical thing. And I feel that we could be in fear of that happening with the women's tournaments as well, because people will look for little things and try and say, oh, because it's a women's tournament, it's not going to be as good or as professional. And I felt that was done with AFCON, and that was kind of blatantly obvious. It was almost like, oh, look, this African tournament, they're getting it wrong. Their timekeeping's all over the place. What is wrong with them? And I think that was a shame because it was an excellent tournament and there was amazing football. And yet we were choosing to make memes and be silly about it. Other than when it came to final and suddenly everyone was like, oh, you're watching AFCON final. So,
Exactly.
I really don't want to see that happen. And in fact, those kind of things should be being called out. And that should have been called out a lot more with AFCON. So it was almost like, yeah, look, we're showing it. Yeah. But let's not mock it at the same time. Let's just watch it for what it is. And that's what needs to happen. Seen some negative comments due to the NFL. Yeah. I mean, so what? Let's have great scorelines, don't we? Isn't that what we go to football for? We want to go and watch goals. Don't want to be sitting there waiting like 60 minutes for a goal to go in. I want to see goals. And if I want to see goals, I might as well go and watch a good women's game where the women are banging those goals in. So,
but
they can watch as much as they like. That's skill, isn't it?
That's the bias though, isn't it? Because it's like you watch a men's game and it finishes 0-0. It was a horrible game. Of course, you have exciting 0-0s, but it's a boring game, 0-0. Everybody's complaining, and you're getting a lot of goals here and quality playing. It's a bias that kind of needs to be changed. And once again, I was gonna mention like a lot of the time, people grow a connection to other people or groups of people when they show emotions and their true personalities per se. And I feel like once again, like when I mentioned just feeling the sport, that's how you're gonna get involved. And you kind of have to put aside that biasness, put aside those perceptions that you see through ignorance on Twitter or any social media platform. You have to grow an opinion of your own and kind of just be an individual and just be a trailblazer almost, because a lot of the time I feel like social media, it promotes this mentality where everybody's having the same opinion. If one person says it, especially if it's somebody with a good following, it doesn't even have to be that. You get a lot of likes and retweets, and all of a sudden everybody's laughing, everybody's memeing it up. But you have to be your own person and feel the sport, understand the individuals, the personalities, and the big names, but even the people. It's all about emotion, sport. And as you start to connect with those people, then you will appreciate that sport more, get into it more, start promoting it and sharing it with the people that you know so they can do the same.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's great to see men promoting the women's game as well. So it isn't, we, as you said, we want you to watch it and enjoy it as football, not as, oh, it's women's football. That's irrelevant. The point is football. Watch it with an open mind. But the problem runs so deep. It really isn't as simple as just people watching it and just accepting it's football, because everyone has these ideas of what women should be doing and how they should be. And as much as we keep saying that we don't, everyone's equal and so on, we know that isn't the case. We know that people don't think in that way. And so all of that, all the stuff that goes on outside, and we see it all the time in sport, all of those politics that go on, it seeps into the sport, and people's minds will always be on that. A bit like, people's ideas about women drivers. So there'll always be a laugh and a giggle. Oh, she didn't park properly. Oh, she's not parking. I mean, the amount of times I've seen a man can't park and then you just spin the car in and you're done. No one goes, oh, well done. But so people have got these ideas and these negative connotations, and they just go into everything. And that's the same with women's football. So, this whole thing with all the goals. So what? What is it? So what? We don't. In fact, when we see a men's game and you get, I don't know, 9-0 against Watford, people are applauding it. Look at that. Look, they got 9 goals. So why are we not applauding like what was it, 6-1? Why are we the Liverpool the other day? So why are we not saying well done to that team? They're a good team and they got 6 goals in. But no, they're rubbish, and that's why they got 6 goals in. I mean, where does that come from? It doesn't even make sense.
I'm glad that you mentioned that it's a lot deeper than what people will see from the surface. Because even bouncing off of Brush's comment here, people with daughters, impressionable children, they'll be at football games. I remember you and Samara kind of speaking about it a couple of weeks back. There'll be people at football games with daughters, with sons, acting like this, bringing their sons, bringing their daughters to football games, unacceptable behavior that they shouldn't have to see. When you have to think about, you have to be a role model to those children. You have to be a trailblazer for the next generation, especially having baby daughters. You want them to have the feeling that they can do what they want to do, because I know a lot, especially back in the days, a lot of females, they would have been stopped for playing sports like football, because there was that, that's not the thing you should be doing. Whereas nowadays it's being pushed, it's being encouraged. So for you, it's almost a failure as a parent to not be educated enough to know that these kind of behaviors, whether it be at a men's football game, a female's football game, or even out of them in the public, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And do you know, I mean, one of the things, it's not, there's even more to it than that. So it's great to see families going to football match, dads taking daughters, mums taking sons, all of that. It happens, and we know it happens. But I'll tell you one thing that is interesting, and again, we've spoken about it before, where there's this mob mentality at football. And the minute people get into that stadium, sorry, drinking Mirinda it's got a lot of bubbles. It was a bad choice for a drink. Yeah, this mob mentality. And one of the shocking things that I've seen is where people go with their children, but they turn into that nasty person that you don't want to be there. And what happens is kids then associate that behavior with how you behave at a football match. So the girls think, oh, okay, so men talking this way about women at football match, so I have to just accept it and just kind of go, oh yeah, it's okay. And we see that time and time again. So like, for example, with the Her Game 2 campaign, quite often on posts on social media where perhaps something is where they're saying, you know, there's sexist elements to games, to going to watch football, and this is what we're trying to eradicate, or at least raise awareness of, because you can never eradicate these things, unfortunately, but we can obviously make it unacceptable, which is what we want to do. You then get women commenting, and they're like, yeah, no, you just joined, it doesn't bother me, I just, you know, it's just a bit of banter, it's this, it's that. But that's not good enough. And that's what I mean. If you've become accustomed to hearing it all the time, you accept that it's okay, but it isn't okay. And that's why behavior at football matches by the people, if you're taking kids with you, then you should be completely aware of what you're saying and the way you're behaving. You shouldn't be turning into this, I don't know, this crazy person who's suddenly spewing all sorts. It's just not acceptable. And I've seen it, and it's a horrible, horrible thing to see, because I feel embarrassed if there's children around me and there's people getting angry and swearing and going crazy. I just think, oh gosh, that's, you know, that child shouldn't be hearing that, let alone the child's parent or the adult that's taken them be saying it, because that just messes you up. It messes you up. Super Nick, the use of social media is essential, cleverly introducing the players and their stories and their male counterparts to pique the interests of neutral clubs need to lead. Absolutely. And I think certain clubs have done it really, really well, and they celebrate their women's team as well as their men's, and it does feel like that one team. Other clubs, unfortunately, don't do it. But social media is absolutely essential, and it's down to the clubs to really, really push it and plug it, so that, as you were saying, CM, you see it and it becomes normality, and you're just thinking, oh, that's a Liverpool player. And you could be talking about a man or a woman, doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter that they're playing in separate teams, but you see them as a Liverpool player, a Chelsea player, a Man United player, and that's how it needs to happen. So yeah, definitely. One of the other things I was going to talk about, and actually what you were talking about, CM, really leads into it, was the retirement of Anita Asante. Is it Asante or Asante? I'm not sure actually how you say her surname. So she is 37 years old. She's had a career spanning something like 17 years, currently plays for Aston Villa, has played for Arsenal, has played for Chelsea, has played for various American teams, has played in Sweden, has had 74 appearances. Look at this, I've memorized it. 74 appearances with in the England team, has played in the World Cup, in the Olympics, and she's just announced her retirement at the end of this season. And she really is a trailblazer. And what's been amazing about what she said was that she went into football and just went for it. So she didn't allow all those things that hold us back. And I've been there where I used to love playing football, but I was told it's not a girl's thing. So you just stop. You're just like, oh, okay. You know, there's an element of, oh, all right then. Like, if there's no support, you're not going to carry on. So you need that support. But what she said, and it was really nice because it was a really positive story. And she said how football actually gave her a voice and a platform, and it allowed her to express her opinions freely and openly without fear. And I just thought that was an incredible, incredible message, that this woman who has been an incredible football player has come up and talked about all the positives that she's drawn from the women's game. So being able to be herself and be open and voice her opinions because of football. And we know that football brings people together, and it raises issues into people's it brings issues to light that maybe we haven't thought about. Whether they're dealt with very well, I don't know, because there's a lot of just saying things for the sake of it. But there's a big audience in football, and if one person out of, I don't know, 1,000 takes on a positive message that's been promoted in football, then that's one person, that's a change that's been made. So I think for this woman, an incredible career, absolutely deserves to be celebrated, and just fantastic that she's really come into her own as a result of football rather than shrunk away, which I think you can do if you take on board all the negativeness. So I just think amazing story. If people don't know much about her, look her up, watch her interviews. There's been a lot of interviews the past week. She's absolutely fantastic.
And one thing that I kind of was inspired about her story and how she came to the realization that she was ready to retire was the fact that her manager kind of was trying to convince her to stay because she's been in great form. So she was trying to convince her. She went away. She was thinking about it. But then she came back a couple weeks later and she was like, you know what? This is the way I want to go out. I want to go out at the top of my game.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how she just brushed aside all of the negative connotations and all of that stuff, entered the game and had a voice of her own. And this is almost like, all of those years building up and her developing into the person she is now. So her going out and kind of retiring the way she wants to at the top of the game, or her game, sorry, it almost speaks for itself with that story and how inspiring that can be for many people when you do look back and look at the things she's won, how many years she's played. To be at the top of your game at 37 years old is
it's incredible.
Incredible. I mean, it's a very inspiring story, very inspiring.
And I really hope that it's highlighted a lot more. I mean, I have to say, it was all over social media, which was great. It was good to see it reported on and discussed, and the interviews being put out there. It would be incredible if we could see a lot more of her now that she's retiring. Be great to see her doing a bit of punditry maybe during the Euros, and inspiring other girls, sharing her story more and encouraging other girls to go forward and play football, not just see it as something you might do at school or you might play now and then and that's it. You can't see it being anything beyond that, but seeing it as a real option for a career, just like boys. You talk to boys and I can guarantee 1 out of every 10 is going to say he wants to be a footballer. If you asked 10 girls, I doubt you would get any of them having an ambition of being a footballer. So it'd be incredible to see that change and seeing it as a viable career and sport for a woman to be doing. And we need voices like Anita's to be helping to do that.
For sure. And, last time out, you and Rich were kind of speaking about education, and even a voice like that and many other voices, if they can kind of encourage the curriculum to change, because I remember when I was going to secondary school, it was like you have PE once a week and then the rest of lessons. You've got to find a way to kind of squeeze those PE lessons in more, so that, because let's be like, kids love PE. They love playing sports, and especially at that age, they'll do whatever is thrown at them. So if you integrate playing football, you know, just bringing a bit of equality into the game and allowing them to express themselves, then you're gonna allow them to gain a positive opinion on the sport. And it's not just men and women, boys, girls. It's football. It's any other sport, whether it be football, basketball, any other sport it is. But you allow females, you allow men to love the sport for what it is, rather than the separation thing that's kind of happened in this country a lot, because it's, you know, it's boys or girls. No, it's everybody together.
And I think who was it? Santiago said about stopping limitations, and that's all part of it, isn't it? It's these limitations and ideas that are that's what's preventing actually women's football growing and becoming what it should become. And as long as we've still got these ideas, that's just going to continue. It's just going to continue, because you can't take something seriously if society doesn't take the women wanting to take part in football if wanting to, you know, branch out and do something a bit different that's traditionally a male thing. If we can't take that seriously in the real world, it's not going to happen in the footballing world, because we see reflections of what goes on in life in football all the time, from fans' behavior, from things that go on the pitch. So it's so important that we start to slowly, well, it'd be nice if it was fast, but slowly try and overcome these things. And it's been going on for years and years. Supernick saying, yeah, compared to men, female footballers are given a shorter career. And, you know, that 100%, this football player, Anita Asante, shows that this doesn't have to be the case at all. I mean, the shorter career, there's so many reasons for it as well. And, you know, women having children, women not having as many opportunities. If we've got people, if we've only got 12 teams, for example, in the Super League, and we know that it's dominated by 3 or 4 of those teams, and you're one of the top players, where do you go? I think it goes back to, I can't remember which player we were talking about earlier. Where do you go?
Yeah, Vivian.
Do you go abroad? Where'd you go? So there's just less opportunity there in general. So if you haven't got a team to go to, if you haven't got the sponsorship, you know, your career will be shorter. But seeing Anita going forward for 17 plus years of professional football, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And she stuck it out. I think that's the other amazing thing. We've only just started talking about women's football as a sport in its own right. She was doing it years ago and has persisted and carried on. So that shows real determination on her part. And I really, really would love to see her speaking out a lot more. Hello. So, yeah, so I just think we need more role models like that. And it would be great for girls to talk a bit more about, not for girls, sorry, for female footballers to come out and talk about the positives of women's football, because we do hear a lot of the negatives, but I think maybe if we heard more positive stories, maybe that would encourage more people to watch, more people to invest in it. And I know the FA has said, I think it was last month, they said they're going to invest more in it. I think they're pumping a bit more money into it. You know, if this government, it's a government review, not an inquiry, because there's nothing to inquire about. Government review. Maybe the government will pump some money into it. So, and that will go everywhere. That won't just be into necessarily professional football, but promoting it in school, promoting it, you know, at local level would be incredible. So really, really important that we see these things. And I think the government talking about it is actually quite a big deal. And it could help. Hopefully they'll come to some really positive outcomes through that review.
100%.
So that leads me on. I'm just having a look at my agenda, actually, because I know what I was going to say. So we're talking about careers. A little bit more of a light-hearted one, this one. So yesterday, was it yesterday or today? Yesterday. Oh, hang on, let's just quickly answer this question. Do you think that women's football would benefit from a Ronaldo Messi-like player? Yes, absolutely. I I mean, you know, the player we were just talking about, she's, as we said, 37 years old, still playing incredibly. You could draw some parallels there. I think the reason why nobody probably compares them in that way is because there just isn't that profile of women's football. But that's what we need. That's exactly what we need, a Ronaldo-esque player. And I don't mean in terms of, I just mean in terms of that status and the acknowledgement of the ability and skill that player has. I think that would be incredible. Yeah, in the US, it is a massive, massive thing. And I don't think I even realized this until fairly recently. I didn't realize that football for women was such a big thing, because football, or, you know, as they call it, soccer in the US, isn't a big thing necessarily for men. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's that, you know, there's obviously American football and basketball and the rest of it. But maybe that's where we need to look for some lessons. You know, what have they done that's so different? Is it that maybe football is seen as a more gentle sport compared to like American football, and so naturally they would view women wanting to play that rather than American football? I don't know. There are icons, you're right, but I think the difference is that you say Ronaldo to someone who's never even watched a football game and they know who he is. Whereas I think to know the women's players, you have to know the women's players, and that's what that difference is. So we need to see these superstars emerging, which currently we don't really have.
Help them to build their brands, because, like you said, Ronaldo's a brand. Messi, you know, Messi he's regarded as one of the greatest players of all time, but he's a brand also. All of these top teams, top players, they're brands first and foremost, especially in the modern day. And then the players and everything that goes on the pitch comes second. Whereas I feel like in the women's game, it's more so the people who are willing to tune in and feel that and get to know the person's personality. They love it. But like what we were speaking about before with the investors, like Sky, like the governing bodies, they have to create the brands, the teams, the major teams. They have to create the brands, not just of the players, but the teams and the leagues, so that it's pushed in your face and you get familiar with that brand almost. And then with that familiarity, you want to know more about the players. You want to know more about their background, the coaches, where they've come from, what they've been through to be in this position.
Exactly. And, you know, stuff like, it'd be great to have, like, you know, Netflix at the moment with their football documentaries. I don't know if you ever watch any football documentaries, but I absolutely love them. I find them intriguing because it's obviously because usually with these documentaries, football's in the background, and what you're watching is the goings on, the intricacies of the team, of you know, the money, the this, the that. It'd be amazing to have, come on, Netflix, do it for us. Let's have a women's team being followed, because I know that I've watched documentaries about teams that I knew nothing about, had no interest in, but I've sat down and watched them. And then in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, like, for example, one of the, what was the one that I watched? I loved it. I've actually watched it twice. Sunderland Till I Die. I don't know if anyone's watched it. Brilliant documentary, brilliant series. I mean, it was more like a drama. It was just crazy. And, you know, I had no interest in Sunderland up until I watched that. And now I actually actively check where they are in the table, whether they're ever going to get promoted. And that's what you need. As you said, it's about building a brand, building a story. And at the moment, we haven't got those stories and brands around the women's team. Some of the top teams are doing a really good job of trying to do that. But we need to see it move beyond just the team itself. We need to see it seeping into other things as well. And I think that's really, really important. Part of that was down to her sponsorship deal. Yeah. But again, that's relying on these sponsorship deals and getting sponsorship for these players and getting them out there. Americans very nationalistic. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So I think, there's a cultural thing there as well. So they are very nationalistic, very patriotic, and people really, really want that. You know, people will get behind anything American in America. Unfortunately, in the UK, that doesn't happen. unless it's like the World Cup, and even then we're all pessimistic because we all kind of know that it's not going to come home. So regardless of where we get to, we're like, oh, there's always this kind of pessimism. But people do get brought together through national football, and I think that's what's going to probably happen with the women's Euros. But I think the important thing is what happens next. Will people follow those women that they get to know through the Euros, and hopefully, England will go far. But will another, any team, because obviously there's loads of players who play for some of the teams here anyway, playing in the Euros. It's what happens next. I'd love to know with men's football how many fans of the World Cup, for example, also watch league games. And I know it'll be a lot of them, but I also know loads of people who don't watch any football unless it's the World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how it translates in the women's game. Yes, lateness is greatness, but it does mean you've missed most of the show, so you're going to have to watch it back. You can like it, though, and share. That'd be great. That's actually a really good idea. That's actually a brilliant idea. So if we can't have the men's football at 3:00, why not put the women's on? I'd love to watch a game at 3:00. It frustrates me that there's nothing on at that time. So that could be a good idea, actually. But I don't know. I mean, it's all to do with TV deals and whatever. I don't know if they would go for that. Yeah, exactly. So it's just, I think that's a cultural thing. It's just something different that's not necessarily going to come through in this country because of the way that people are and the way everyone thinks in terms of the country and supporting a team. So I'm not sure how that would translate in the UK, in England. Yeah, it's true. So the UK women's game is way off. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. So I was thinking this. I wondered whether off-season maybe would be a time to have. So it's almost like we have two seasons. We have the men's season and the women's season. So they're not clashing, because at the moment, one of the issues I see with it being televised and sponsorship and so on is that it clashes with the men's game, and the men's game brings in mega bucks, and the women's game won't do that for a long time yet, because we're just we're not there yet. So maybe that is the perfect time for it. Definitely. So I'm aware of the time as well. We don't want to go over our hour. The other thing I was going to talk about, and I'd be interested to hear what you've got to say about this. So we're talking about people retiring and so on. So yesterday, Klopp announced, this obviously isn't about the women's game as such. Klopp announced that he has decided, yeah, definitely. He has decided to, I mean, it's not just a decision. You obviously have to get the backing of the board and so on, but he's going to extend his contract again, even further to 2026. And it was kind of heartwarming and lovely, and people have really taken to the story, was that he said that one of the reasons why he decided he perhaps wanted to extend his contract, aside from the fact that obviously Liverpool riding high at the moment, was because his wife said something along the lines of, are we really going to leave all these people behind in 2024? And it really got me thinking about how the support of a partner or the support of family is so important in how you move on in your career, in your life, on your path, and how it really links into what we've been talking about with women's football. So women not have it, if you've not got that backing from your family, from your partner, it can be really difficult to progress in what you want to do. But I wonder whether it's even more difficult for women who are in football already. I'm not talking about getting into football, but already in football, when maybe they're thinking about starting a family and so on. Once that happens, do they still have that support of their family and their partner to carry on? And other things, it's not just about having families, but I wonder whether the support of the family and partners begins to kind of wane a little bit as it goes on, because there isn't as much interest in the game and so on. And I really what I liked yesterday is that people were celebrating a woman who is not directly involved with football as such, but has been really pushed to the forefront as having this huge influence on someone. Love him or hate him, Klopp is legendary. And people, I think, really warmed to that story of his wife sort of going, yeah, I don't want us to leave, and him deciding that he's going to carry on. So, how do you think it's different for women having that support once they're in the game, do you think, to men?
I feel like it's very important for them to have, especially from the start. And we speak about strong women going into the game based of their own opinion, but it would make it so much easier, for example, with their partners, if they're even their fathers, just male figures that they look up to and say, listen, I support this, you go and do what you need to do. Because in the end of the day, my mom, for example, she encourages me to do anything that I set my mind to do. And especially if you have the passion for it, if you have the passion to play football, just do anything that you want to do, then you should have the backing of your loved ones. And that will, again, going back to it, encourage them to do more, get their friends involved, get other people involved, whether it be over social media, just anywhere. That's what it's about, getting and building that encouragement from within and building that love of the sport from within. And that's very important. And I really did like that story because it's unique. It's unique, especially the way Klopp said it and how it influenced him and how it was one of his influences. Because in the end of the day, family, whether you like it or not, for the most part, those are the people you look onto to provide knowledge, to provide wisdom, and also encouragement, whether you're up, whether you're down in those tough times, but also in those bright moments. So you'll always be looking at them, and even though people say, do what you want, there's always a mind in the back of your head saying, I don't want to let this person down, you know what I mean? So I'm always gonna sway towards what they kind of suggest that I should do, because I want to make them proud and prove to them that, I can do it. But what if you, as that impressionable person, say, listen, I back whatever you want to do, whether you want to go and play football as a female, as a young female. It doesn't even have to be young, could be early teens, late teens, whatever. But you've got to have the backing of your loved ones in anything. It doesn't have to be sport. It could be anything they want to do in life. So that story was very unique, and it was nice because it was Klopp showing recognition that he listens and he appreciates what his wife wants, most importantly, and what's good for his family. Because even there was a thing I was reading about it and saying that his wife, he had a chance to go to Manchester United, and she said it wasn't the right moment. But when it was Liverpool, she could sense that connection. She could sense that feeling that something was different about this city, about the set of fans. And that's what I'm talking about. Even my mom's a single mom, but I can, admit that they can detect things way better than a man can ever do. They know when something's wrong with you. They know when something's right. They know when something's about to happen. I don't know how, but they just know. So it was just a very nice story, because me personally, and I know you do as well, and everybody in the chat here, because they care, most importantly, they know how influential a woman can be in anybody's life. So it was a very nice story and touching as well.
I think we need to cut that whole edit that whole section and have that as some kind of big motivational speech on the channel, because that was incredible. We've got everyone crying in the chat, but it's true. And actually, I think what was really special, as you were saying, is that acknowledgement of women's I don't know what the word is, like the attribute qualities, women's qualities. And I think it's so important, because as women, we want to obviously have equal rights. We want to be equal. We don't want to be paid less. We don't want to be this. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be limited in what we can do because we are women. But we also want to be women. So you shouldn't. And it's, you know, when we were talking about going to football matches and girls accepting that you have to join in with the men's some of the nonsense that goes on and pretending you don't care, even though probably deep down you're thinking, well, this ain't nice, but I am going to join in because it's what men do, and this is a men's game and this is a men's domain, and so I have to join in with it. And I think that what was really lovely about what you said and what Klopp said was this acknowledgement that women have got something else that they can bring to the party. And that's the same as with football, which is why I think it would be incredible to see women managing football teams. Women managing some Premier League football teams would be incredible. So to see that and see what difference that could make to a team's performance, because I think there would be some clear things we would see that would be very, very different. And it would be a really interesting thing. I know there is actually a woman, I can't remember which country, actually. We were going to try and follow it. I'm going to have to look it up for next week. But there is a female manager in one of the European teams. And I'd love to see how she's getting on and how that has changed that team's performance and outlook, actually. So, yeah, amazing. France, thank you. It's in France. So, who was talking about FIFA? Yeah, FIFA is, So, yeah, Football Manager has added women's football into it. And in fact, Football Manager has got her game too featured in in their game, which I think is brilliant. And FIFA, again, expanding the women's game in FIFA is would be great, because then it just makes it more normal. You know, people picking up putting their, I don't know, their Xbox, whatever it is they're playing it on, and they're seeing the option to play women's as well. So I just think that's brilliant, because it's just another way of embedding it into culture.
I will say, because I'm a gamer, EA've got to do more, because they implemented the women's game ages ago and they've hardly updated it. You got to do more.
Yeah. And again, it's that, you know, they obviously look at interest and what people are interested in. So we need to, maybe again, the Euros will up that a little bit with them, but definitely there's so much more that can be done, and we need to see that happening. And that's down to us as well, to keep talking about it, keep posting about it, promote it on your social media channels. Everyone, you know, when you see a tweet, don't sort of poo-poo it because it's about women's football. Join in the debate. And I've seen some incredible things. I've seen some incredible things happening on social media where people really are pushing the women's game, and some huge advocates are actually men, huge football fans who just love the game and can't understand why the women's game isn't being pushed more. I mean, we don't think twice really about women's tennis or that kind of thing. It's just the thing that we accept. There's the women's final, the men's final at Wimbledon, and we all love it and we celebrate those players, and we should be doing the same with football, especially as football's like a national institution in this country. It's absolutely crazy. Ian Wright, why are we talking about Ian Wright? What's he done?
I'll be saying he's very involved in the women's game as well.
Oh, he is.
Champions it.
He does. And actually he was like the person who revealed the Arsenal women's, they did a collaboration with, who was it with? Anyway, it was an Adidas collaboration with a designer. So I think it was Stella McCartney, actually, in Adidas, because she's a designer for one of the, she does some of the special editions. And he did the big reveal, and that was brilliant. He was wearing like the women's shirt and promoting it. So yeah, Ian Wright's great. And he actually was one of the people that jumped on that manager of, I can't remember which team it was, who said that women are too emotional to play, that women are over emotional, which was ridiculous, because how can we talk about women being too emotional to play football when we see the things we see going on in men's football? It's just crazy. But yeah. So NBA, they've done that, which is great. But again, as you said, I think he said that the women's game was put into FIFA, but not really progressed since then. So was it horrible? I thought it was all right. It was a shame it was Arsenal. I wouldn't dare wear it, but you know, it's all right.
And
Great
can I say,
collaboration. Great
can I
collaboration.
say, going back on that comment of the person who ever said it, saying women are too emotional. We've literally seen managers who are supposed to be the calmest figures in the game running down touchlines, jumping up in joy, screaming at touchline officials. Come on now. Come on now.
Exactly. It's like players storming up, getting upset when they're taken off and, you know, going crazy. And we see it week in, week out. How can you say that when Zaha exists? Exactly. So we see, and actually, it's a really good point. Was it last week when what was it? Was it the FA Cup final? FA Cup semi-final. Zaha didn't applaud the fans, and he said he was so upset and emotional that he then regretted that he did it and apologized. But he said it was a very emotional moment for him. And it was literally that week, I think, where all those comments had happened with that manager saying that women were too emotional. And, you know, when a goal was scored, that they then concede because it was silly. It was just a silly comment. Right. Turn these organizations. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully we'll see more of this going on, and we'll see the women's game progress even further. Wow, it's been absolutely amazing, CM, having you on. Brilliant to have you in person, because you're usually one of our, you know, all the great comments and questions coming through. Great. We'd love, you know, anyone wants to come on the show and chat. Super Nick, I think I'd love to have you on, because your comments are incredible. I'd love to have Super Nick on. If you are willing and you're still watching, get in touch with us, because I think you'd be an incredible guest to have on the show. So that is where we are ending. I would highly encourage everyone to watch the last women's season ends on Sunday. If you can catch any of those games, if you can physically go or just watch it on TV, it is on various places. If you can find it, please do watch. Yes, Super Nick, we're going to get you on. We're going to get you on. It would be incredible for people to really support those games. And if you are able to, the FA Cup final, women's FA Cup final, which is the day after the men's FA Cup final, there are still tickets on sale for Wembley. It'd be amazing if we can fill out the allocated space in the stadium with football fans. So let's try and get there. Thank you very much to everyone in the comments. Thank you to CM. Thank you to Rich for helping us out with all the comments. And as I said, do share the show, stick it out there, get people to watch it back, and keep liking, keep subscribing, keep watching. Thank you very much. Goodbye.